Can you hear me? I hope you're having a good day. Let's get started. Just had some trouble with my internet connection, but I think I figured it out. Thank you everyone for joining. Hope you had a good weekend. Certainly a lot of interesting movements in the market. So we'll just get going and discuss the macro, discuss lower time frame, see where we stand in the market. And I think it's very important to precisely understand how the market looks on higher time frames, right? Because soon everybody will start saying again, "Oh, bull market is back," this and that, right? But obviously, corrections are always possible. Then reversals as well does not mean that we see a change of trend. So we'll see where we stand in the market right now, and then make a plan for what's to come. First of all, obviously. Most of the stuff that we have discussed in recent streams has played out, and with most, I think probably everything, right? Starting from the daily bear diff on BTC, which we discovered a few days ago, then daily divergences on Ethereum, ETH BTC, total 2 at our resistance zone. Everything we covered regarding open interest in the market, right? And that has led to a nice pullback in the market, nothing extraordinary in my view yet, but yeah, it did cause a 15% dump on Ethereum, 20 to 30% dump on altcoins. So we were prepared for that. So let's see where we stand from this point. First of all, BTC pretty good retest of the 112, 108k area, which was my zone of interest after this daily bearish divergence was printed. Right, very important zone for me to hold. I think any acceptance below this area here, unless it is like a quick wick at around 105k, thing would be quite bearish. Acceptance below, and I think we can target significantly lower levels. So this is a very important zone for me to hold for BTC, which I will be looking at in the next few days. Nevertheless, just because this holds doesn't mean that it is necessarily higher time frame bullish, right? We still need to reclaim these lows here. 117k is very, very important to me. If we manage to find acceptance back into this range, I think we can squeeze to a new all-time high. But as long as this is not reclaimed, this can be just a bearish retest, and potentially the price goes down again to 112 to 108k, where I will be looking for local triggers to potentially buy some spot. I'll see, because the invalidation is very easy for BTC. So plan very, very simple on the daily, and we can go a bit more higher time frame than that, right? Because this matters as well. And from the last stream, basically what we got until today is a monthly close, right? And I've said that the monthly close is very, very important. And the reason for that is that on the monthly, we do have indeed a 3 drive, right? So a triple bearish divergence. It's not perfect yet. Monthly could have closed a bit higher than this. Nevertheless, that can still happen. That can still happen this month, right? So we could still squeeze a bit and then close the monthly something like this, 126k for example, 125, and then we would have a perfect monthly 3 drive. In my view, if we get a squeeze to these highs here, 125, 126, it doesn't matter precisely, because this is a monthly time frame, right? And monthly time frame, I mean, there's a lot of room for the price to move. We could even like squeeze 135k and come down to 126 and print the 3-month, right? But the 3-month is not something I look into and say, wow, let me accumulate as much Bitcoin as I can, right? Especially going into the 3rd, 4th year of this cycle. This is not something I personally prefer to do. For long-term positions, I see us getting way better prices next year, potentially in 2027. But this is not something I buy into. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities to scalp, right? And every little move down, every little move up will be interpreted by the market. Move downs will be like, oh, we're going into a bear market. Moves up will be interpreted as, the market is back, bull run all season. But it is very important to not be a victim of this emotional roller coaster, but to understand the higher time frame structure of the market, right? Because that will allow you to make significantly more informed decisions regarding your positions. So I think for Bitcoin it's quite clear. The daily, I think we can still move up a bit. I don't see any local signs of weakness per se, like bearish divergences. As I said on the daily, I think 117-ish is still possible. If we get a drop to this 112 to 108k zone, we will try some long positions as well if given. Anything in between for me is just for scalping. Honestly, it doesn't make much sense for me to look for longs between 117 and 112k. Just a no trade zone for me as a higher time frame trader. So very, very simple for BTC. Before going into our indexes and looking at these higher time frame structures, we can look at Ethereum as well. As we said, daily bearish divergence into a macro resistance area played out halfway already, which led to a almost 15% drop in Ethereum. And the higher time frame plan for ETH remains absolutely the same, right? A few days of lower time frame price action doesn't change that. The positive thing about this is that we did get a partial RSI reset of this daily bearish divergence. You can see daily RSI pumping straight from the 50 area, so that's pretty good. Nevertheless, my idea remains the same. We flip 4K and we can squeeze towards significantly higher levels for Ethereum. If that's not managed, then I won't be interested to buying spot. My only spot area remains here and here. I did have some interest at around 3,400. We did discuss this zone as well. But this is more of a scalp zone for me. Now, of course, it matters what you understand as a scalp, right? It can be a 1% move. For me, this is a scalp. 3,400 was always a scalp area. And for swings, I remain I remain patient because I need the flip of this zone here or this area here. So it's quite typical from ETH to be pretty volatile, even in previous instances, right? As you can see here, we have big pullbacks, reversals, and the problem here is that with every of these pullbacks, people will say it's over, right? It's over, and we're going to a bear market, and then they will say, "Oh no, look, we're back. Ethereum is going to 5K. It's over. Look, we're back." You know what I mean? And this is why it is very important to understand the higher time frame structure. And this is why I think a stream like this is extremely important to all members to understand where we are. So as long as 4K is not flipped, I see us going towards 3K. Absolutely. Of course, it won't happen within a day, but it can happen in the next weeks. If 4K is flipped into support, then we can say, well, it will break out. We will look for a retest, buy, and then we can target the 5K area or the previous all-time high or the current all-time high area. So let's see what happens. In addition to BTC printing that 3 drive or being very, very close to printing that 3 drive, we also have some other indexes that close the monthly on a 3 drive, like total market cap, right? That's also not something I personally ignore because a 3 drive, especially on higher time frames, really rarely gets invalidated. And here again, we can also squeeze a bit higher this month, right? Just as with the BTC, this can still happen. We close the monthly here and then have a perfect 3 drive. However, that's not guaranteed because this already to me is a 3 drive, right? It's not in the perfect trend line, but this is a 3 drive for me. Or something like this. Here, and then here. So what does this tell me? As an investor who was probably bought here or here, you know that the market is coming into a position where it is appropriate to take some profits from long-term positions, right? Because you don't want to be somebody who buys swing or long-term positions as the market is printing a 3 drive. Now, whether that is here or a bit higher, it doesn't matter, right? Because for long-term positions, another 5, 6, 7% move doesn't really matter that much. You know what I mean? So we have the same situation with BTC and with total market cap and with total 2, right? Just what we have been discussing in the previous streams. Now, the sell-off was pretty good. It did cause quite a flush on total open interest, right? But if these divergences play out, I think we're very, very far from reaching a macro bottom. So we'll see how this plays out this month. Ideally, we actually get that squeeze higher to print a perfect 3 drive. But as I said, I'm not really interested in long-term positions here. I've sold a lot of spot recently, mostly on stock positions. And this is a very good index that tells me why. VVIX to others, decrease exposure in the red box, increase exposure in the green box. This is for long-term positions. Now, of course, there's a lot of opportunities in between, right, to catch bangers. But when it comes to like long-term, the lower we move into this box here, the less I'm interested in long-term stuff. And if we move into this box here, I'm interested in long-term stuff. And of course, we don't get it every day. We might get it once, twice a year. But moving closer to this red box and having these monthly divergences playing out, to me basically tells that it's not really a time to be looking for long-term exposure and to rather approach the market level by level. Make your trades, take your profits, and then look for the next setups. But total market cap on more lower time frames going away from the monthly. This was a pretty good retest, not gonna lie. We did have this zone marked together with Bitcoin, right? So what I want to see here is basically a reclaim of this zone here. And then we can look for higher levels. If that's not the case, then this is just a bearish retest territory. On total 2, also reached our zone, or our first zone of interest. Dashed lines always means scalp zone. Green boxes always means swing zones. Right, so rejected perfectly from our macro resistance area, came all the way down to 1.34 trillion. This was a pretty big zone. The reason for that is because we have some daily closes here, which mark the support area. But like midterm, I would be really interested in this 1.25 trillion. Now, whether we get that or not instantly, I don't know. All right, there's somebody angry outside. What I'm looking here for total 2 is it's very simple, right? Zoom out and everything will make a lot of sense. Zoom in and you will be confused and you'll be scared and you will be affected by the sentiment in the market. But as long as you zoom out, everything's fine. Here, I will be looking for shorts at 1.48 trillion. If we reject here, then my first zone of interest is 1.25 5. This is a big zone. If we get this, you don't really complicate it. You try some spot, right? Because this is a swing zone with very easy invalidations. Especially if we get a lower high here, right? So we're trying to build a structure here. A high, a lower high, and maybe another lower high here, or maybe a bit higher. We'll evaluate local triggers. Then we have a structure building, right? Let me just close my window. It's so annoying. All right, way better. We gotta let some structure form on higher time frames. You know what I mean? Especially after bigger runs, that's very important. Look at this. Look at this. Market moved up a lot. On the first dip, everybody just wants to buy, right? Because we're going so much higher. We're going so much higher. And yes, we did go higher. But eventually that led to a downtrend, right? So that's also very important to notice here. And we did have a big move on total 2. Very, very big move, right? And I'm not interested in swing positions on the first dip that we get, right? I'm scalping. I long some Ethereum here, but I'm not necessarily interested in long-term stuff. Why? Because we have also here a very small one, but a 3 drive, or better to say, where's RSI? A regular divergence. Oh, look at the colors. All right. Here as well. Very, very similar to total market cap. This could be a bit more perfect, absolutely. Not as ideal yet. Almost equal. But can be still considered something. The RSI though is a divergence, so that's good as confluence. So yeah, long story short, 1.55, very, very big resistance area. Very big resistance area. We'll be looking for a lower high for shorts. Eventually, I think this 1.25 trillion area will come sooner or later. And this goes in line with what we said about Ethereum, right? 4K needs to be reclaimed, which is probably around this area for total 2. Or else we go to the 3K area. Anything in between is for scalping. Scalping exclusively. Total 3. Look at this. Also came nice, down nicely to our zone. So here as well, we will be looking at 1.04 trillion, potentially for a lower high. And if we get a lower high here on total 2, we will be looking for lower levels in the next weeks and months, because this will not hold a second time. Or else the bullish case, maybe something like this. And if we break out of this here, then we can target 1.15 trillion, which is new highs or new local highs for total 3. But obviously this will depend a lot on Ethereum and Bitcoin as well. As long as Bitcoin is above 108K, I don't think there's much reasons to be worried. Only acceptance below can be a bit tricky. One interesting chart that I've been also looking at is others. And what I've personally noticed on super high time frames on the daily is that we are forming some form of a bear flag here. Right here and right here. So currently doing a bearish retest. 280, 286 is pretty big resistance here. I think 250, 240 billion is inevitable for others. I would be very surprised if the zone doesn't get retested. And that wouldn't necessarily need Bitcoin to drop below 108K, right? If Bitcoin just retests that area again and dominance picks up, then I think others can go to the zone. But this is a very important level if it comes, because if we start doing something like this and find acceptance below this bear flag, I think that would be quite bearish for altcoins. So this is something you'll need to monitor. If you use this box for buying mid caps, if it comes, then you have to understand your invalidation for your positions, right? Because you don't want to be buying here and then risk holding all the way down to this bear flag breakdown, right? So very, very important to understand this. I think this can still come, and I'll probably try some stuff here as well. But the invalidation should be pretty clear. Very, very important. So we'll keep monitoring this. What is the daily RSI saying? Look at this. Reaching a resistance zone daily at 50, right? So would be a bit careful to consider new swing positions here. Would be a bit careful. And if you get this, then this is where you buy with very easy invalidation. Another index, I think this was probably the best one we caught because it's super precise. 4.60, 4.50 area. One good news is though that here we did have a daily bull dip, right? And we've also always said this 12-hour bullish divergence will get reset at some point. Now look at this. There are two ways to reset a bullish divergence. The first way is to just go from in this case, from oversold to overbought, right? So reach above 70. The second way is to actually print a 12-hour divergence. So something like this. This is still possible. And this would be a full reset, and then we no longer would need to consider this 12-hour bullish divergence. And we don't need to consider it anyway because it is reset. We always said it will reset, and it did reset. Look at this. So for USDT dominance, I think if Bitcoin holds that area, we can at least go towards this zone here. And then we would be forming a structure, as I said, for total or total 2. Which one was it? If we do get a 12-hour bear dip like this, say we don't hold here because others is at resistance, total is at resistance, right? Say we don't hold here and we get this, then I think that's also for buying. And if others is at 250, 240 billion, this is a very good setup for positioning into mid caps, and obviously always having in mind BTC, which is retesting that 108, 112K area, which is a big support zone. So, long story short, what am I expecting? I wouldn't mind another drop in the market, right? Because others is close to or approaching a lower high area, total 2 as well, total 3 as well. But if we drop, I wouldn't be necessarily too short-term bearish because we can form some higher time frame divergences. Like for USDT dominance, and if you get this, if you're sidelined, then you just use that potential divergence as confluence for buying. 4.60 is a pretty big resistance zone. Only find acceptance above this level, and we will target significantly higher zones. So this is probably in confluence with Bitcoin holding that 108 to 112k. So you have your higher time frame confluences. You understand what I mean? Starting from BTC, which is very important, of course. So what else do we got? ETH BTC. Okay, and was it a resistance zone? Printed a daily bearish divergence. Now coming to this zone again. So this is very important. I've drawn this last week, right? Before we broke down. Not a significant drop yet, right? So you see what I mean? Like if you zoom out, this is not too bad, right? This is normal, like 8-9% drop after all this move. That's only natural. A lot of open interest has accumulated on Ethereum as well. But this is a big zone, and the resistance zone until proven otherwise. As I've said on the last stream, this needs to be reclaimed, and then we have bigger confluence that the Ethereum could flip that 4K area. If not, then this is just another retest, and we can go lower. Specifically, this area is really interesting. Maybe some support here as well. So it's a market of probabilities and options, right? You gotta prepare for any scenario. Say here you're sidelined. What does this analysis mean for you? It basically means that if these resistance zones are reclaimed, you buy on a retest, right? You buy here, and your invalidation is very easy. If this is not reclaimed, then you wait for lower, potentially that 3K area on Ethereum. Right? It's not our job to make a prediction yet. Sometimes we can, right? When we had this divergence on the daily, we said that it is possible that we will have better opportunities for ETH in the future. And we did, because ETH dropped 15%. But at the end of the day, it's a market of preparation, right? Discussing different options that are possible, and then seeing which options is playing out, or which options are playing out, and executing based on the option that is playing out. All right. So, long story short, what is my feeling towards the market? Short term, I don't have reasons to be extremely bearish as long as Bitcoin holds that support zone, right? There's no reason for me to be bearish. Where's our box? Did I delete it? Oh, great. Never mind. 112, 108. Right, the box that we discussed. No reason to be higher time frame bearish for the short term. The long term, as I said, monthly triple div, something to consider for long term positions, but short term, only acceptance below here. I would be worried. But here again, 117, 50 area, right? This is not something you want to long into. If you're long from the weekend, then all good. But as we get closer to these range lows, I wouldn't be longing. Apart from BTC holding the support, but it's been also positive, was the dollar rejecting from the 100 area, or the DXY index rejecting from the zone. This was a pretty big resistance zone, which is very unrealistic to just be reclaimed on the first try, right? So this is also pushing BTC a bit higher today, the rejection of the dollar. Of course, TA wise, the 100 area is very, very important, because it would mean that the dollar would move back into this year-long range it has been trading for a long time, right? And if this happens, then investors are more incentivized to enter a currency that has potential to grow, and exit a currency that is printing a monthly bearish divergence, you know what I mean, and going into its third or fourth year of the cycle. But short term, below 100 and BTC above 108, 109, 110, we could squeeze. We could squeeze. Am I a long-term buyer on Bitcoin? No, personally not. My strategy or my plan for the next few years. My plan is very, very simple, and only relevant for like super higher time frame traders, right? But if you haven't seen this before, basically weekly divergence from range lows, I would be very surprised if these don't hold. But the flip above 100 and I think 107 will come at least in a few years, maybe range highs as well. Obviously, a bit difficult for the dollar to pump in Trump's administration, right? Because Trump is trying to keep the dollar weak. He's trying to keep the dollar weak because he wants American goods to be cheap for foreign investors, right? So one way to do it is by reducing the value of the dollar. Of course, for us Europeans, for example, or Asians, doesn't matter. It is very cheap to travel to the US right now, right? Or relatively cheaper compared to a few months ago, because our euros or our Japanese yen or whatever will get you more dollars, right? So everything you buy is cheap in euro terms in the United States. And the same works for goods that are produced in the US as well, right? If you paid 1,200 euros for an iPhone in February or March, now you're only paying like 1,000 euros for an iPhone, right? So the incentive to basically buy US goods is way higher, and that improves the trade deficit of the United States. So the US is currently exporting a lot less than it imports because it is very dependent on imports. And one of Trump's goals is obviously to change this, to at least to decrease the gap, right? To start exporting a bit more and maybe import a bit less, and substitute these goods with US goods, and keeping the dollar weak is one way to do that. And how is he keeping the dollar weak? With tariffs here and there, with interfering with the Federal Reserve, right? The Federal Reserve is an independent entity. It is not supposed to be politically controlled, right? And then when the U.S. president interferes with it, interferes with monetary policy, that will just only spook investors. And I don't think that Trump is dumb or anything. I think he does it very intentionally to keep the dollar weak. And then, of course, with threatening with new tariffs, I don't think he's super interested in finding trade solutions, to be honest, because tariffs are one way to keep the dollar weak, because tariffs create uncertainty and fear regarding a recession. And tariffs are also one way to slow down the economy, which can then eventually force the Federal Reserve to start easing quicker, right? So, long story short, a bit difficult for the dollar to gain higher time frame traction during Trump, but I still expect the dollar to remain its dominant role in global markets. And whenever we go to these levels in the next 2 years, I will be buying BTC, and it will come at some point. But lower time frame under 100, very good, very very good for Bitcoin. Very good sign, short term. Especially for altcoins, I would wait for this. I think this is key for swing positions. This bear flag is key because this is a bearish retest, right? And then say all these monthly divergences start playing out, like on total market cap or total 2 or on BTC. Then I think we can even have a breakdown from this bear flag. I'm not interested in predicting this, right? It's just discussing a potential pattern that is forming, that could form, and understanding the consequences of this pattern playing out at some point, right? It is very important to understand that. But your best shot will be here. Break down from this bear flag, and oh boy, I think my breakdown target would at least be here, 180 billion. So keep this in mind. Draw this yourself on the others index. Draw this yourself. Place some alerts for 250, 240, and maybe a bit of an extension to 235. Right? It doesn't really matter. What is important is the higher time frame structure, and this is very, very key for altcoins. I'm telling you that. Start breaking up from this and invalidating this, then we have a very nice period of altcoin performance, at least towards 390, 400 billion for others. So very important to understand the higher time frame structure. Very, very important. Would you consider this a breakout of the trend line? Yes, it is. It is one. I've talked about this in fundamentals many times. I personally don't expect new lows for DXY. Sell and buy button? What do you? Oh, this one you mean? I've never seen this before. What do I touch? This? All right. Colors don't match your layout. I never saw this. All right. So this is more or less it. This is more or less it. One interesting thing before we get to questions. Keep an eye on BTC dominance in the next few days. If it does something like this, you don't want to be trapped into altcoin positions here on a potential 3-day bullish divergence. Just keep this in mind. But overall, if you're like a super higher time frame trader, just look at this. If you like have another job, want to know when to scale in, when to scale out, one day we will get this. One day. When will that be? It doesn't matter. Whenever it comes, we know where we are. Of course, if things enter a bear market, right, it's not as clean and as simple as that. But there are other confluences to consider. Of course, we don't just look at one index and say, well, we're buying now. But this is a good confluence. Look at this. Cycle top 2021, March 2024, November 2024, July, August. Do we get another step down there? If we do and you didn't take any profits, make sure to take profits. And the thing is that, especially in the period between April and July, the VIX index is very, very calm. Look at this, for example. May. What did we have last year? Here as well. Right? What does this tell you? It tells you that retail is getting very comfortable buying. When retail gets too comfortable buying, it is a sign for you to look for profit taking. Right? Because you don't want to be on the same wave as retail is. You want to buy when retail panics. Remember in April when we used this as Confluence for our stock purchases? Now, of course, this will not come every day, right? Look at this, like in the last 5 years, we got these extreme levels 3 times. So it won't happen every day. But set some alerts. Set some alerts at 30, at 50, at 60. Look at the volatility index throughout the bear market. Always very high. Retail didn't feel as comfortable to buy this. And this is related to that VVIX slash others index. Yeah, you don't have to understand this. Just use the boxes, man. It is basically like a form of predicting when the VIX is going to start increasing, right? And historically speaking, it did in the red box. Now, of course, this is a 3-day chart, right? Just because it is in the red box doesn't mean that it instantly grows, but it has been it has had a very good hit rate, to be honest, in predicting when it will happen. So usually in the months leading towards this box, the volatility index has prepared for a spike up. And it is very logical if you think about it, right? Just think about it this way. When the volatility index is calm, right, it means that investors are buying stocks, they're over leveraged, right? A lot of open interest accumulates. Then this one decreases, right? And what happens is that a lot of borrowed positions form, and gradually, they get shaken out of the market. Right? And that is when the volatility index starts increasing. And when the volatility index starts decreasing, it means that markets drop. Stock markets, the crypto market follows. But historically speaking, that's the best time to buy, at least when it comes to swing positions. So keep this in mind. If we ever get to an overpriced dollar and Bitcoin, let's say, is oversold on the 3-day or on the weekly, and the volatility index is here, I'll be accumulating a lot of Bitcoin. It will come. It always does. I didn't try to divide by total. Should be more or less the same. Alright, so what are we doing here? ETH. We had a nice spike up after New York Open. Right, so let's look at this on more lower time frames. I hate this. I hate this. All right. Honestly, no signs of weakness yet for Ethereum. Sorry, somebody was at the door. No signs of weakness yet, and with that I mean like there's no bearish divergence forming yet. So whenever you see something like this, especially on more higher time frames, then it's always good to take some profits. We did have a nice 30-minute bull div on ETH over the weekend. This was my long trigger right here. There was a POC here. It's gone now, but it was here. And this 30-minute came in the context of what, like the 4-hour oversold? Yes, 4-hour, maybe even 8-hour. Yeah, almost 8-hour, but 4-hour was good. Yeah, Belkinator, you were the one who recommended this one. So, really good explanation of that. Thank you for the index, man. Yeah, retail complacent. That's a really good way to describe it. Yeah, people move up the risk curve. Exactly. Low complacency, others risk on. Good. What is your thought on BTC to S&P 500? You mean that the Bitcoin is going to lose value over the S&P 500 in the next few years? The thing with the S&P 500 is, of course, it is highly dependent on a lot of things, right? Like monetary policy and the United States, whether the United States is able to avoid a recession or not. So it's not just a matter of TA, right? We do TA on the S&P 500, and it will suddenly work out. It depends a lot on monetary policy, on liquidity, of course. We got from a TA side of things, we got a monthly bear div on the S&P 500. So this was probably also what led to a little shake off last week, as people might have been spooked from this divergence. Historically speaking, monthly divergences have not really been as good for the S&P 500. Always led to some form of retrace. But as I said, I don't really like using divergences as much on stocks. I sometimes do on more higher time frames, but not a big fan because they don't work out as well as for crypto. We got a 3-day bearish divergence on coin the other day. This worked out almost at the 50 area. Mouse battery very low. Let me just charge my mouse a bit. Come up with some questions, guys. What do you want me to cover? Do you have anything you want to ask? Anything you want me to cover until my mouse charges? Then I can change the chart. You placing any spot limit when buy? I have a spot limit for Sui, and I think it will get filled when Leverkusen. Leverkusen, man, broke my heart this summer. Let me show you Sui and what I got for Sui. All right. So Sui, man, oh man, we did catch a nice short on Sui. I got stopped Pico top at break even while I was sleeping. A few fundamentals caught it. Really nice, really good reading in that. I think there were also a few who sold their spot bags. In my view, Sui is at least going to this level here. I'm not really as interested in it until this zone. 290 to 2.80. Look at the daily. It hasn't reset yet. Found acceptance below the 50 area. So might as well just be a bearish retest. Maybe look for some shorts soon. We will evaluate that as well. Maybe around here. But ultimately, I do think that Sui is going a bit lower, and that's fine, right? That's completely fine because it had a really nice move, and a lot of open interest has accumulated, right? So this will need to come down gradually. Look at this. So this is a normal retest if given. Wouldn't worry too much about it. I'll have a spot limit between 290 and 278. And here again, what is very important is to understand the invalidation, because if it starts accepting below this, then you could be saying it is also forming some form of bear flag. It's not as perfect. But you don't want to be trapped into this if it finds acceptance below 270, something like that. Right? But as long as this is support, we can try it out whenever it comes. Possible ETH back at 4K forming a 3 dive on the 3-day. Take a look at BNB. Hope you have a great day so far. Would you like to know your thought on ML best level? Kind of confused because on unlocks. Anna. Wait, first ETH. BNB, Anna. Can ETH form a 3 drive? Yes, it can. Maybe not a 3 drive, but like a regular divergence on the 3-day. But needs to be a bit later, not now. If it happens here, would need to happen like end of August. And something like this. Yeah, it's absolutely possible. 4K is a big area, man. If you're bullish on ETH below 4K, good luck. Flip above, yeah, I'll join the core. Look at all the OI accumulated. Nothing has really been flushed out. So yeah, absolutely 3 drive is possible. BNB. BNB. Ooh, this smells like a bear div. Is it at a new all-time high? Yeah, okay. New all-time high. Could do something like this. A lot of 3 drives can form in the next few weeks. A lot of 3 drives. Look at this here as well. This is not something I would buy into. I mean, yes, it is in price discovery, absolutely. But still, a 3 drive. As I said, I'm a big fan of higher time frame divergences. They rarely get invalidated. Look here as well, all the OI accumulated. Do you want to be buying into this? You know what I mean? And I had 2 levels for Anna. This is not the one. Let me just paste my chart from the browser. And that's very simple in my view. Oh, I don't have the chart here either. Anyway, let's draw it. Let's draw it again. Anna, for me, a big resistance zone is this area here. Very big resistance zone. And for buying, I would be looking for buys. If you get this, it's a buy. Like 49 to, let's say, 49 to 40. 49 to 40. But here as well, look at the OI, man. Would you be chasing this? I don't know. It's maybe just an issue of my approach, right? I like to buy when nobody's interested in really buying. Not really after so much OI has accumulated. So not so sure. Daily bear div as well. So I would definitely wait for a reclaim of the 70 cents area for Anna. Wouldn't touch it before that. Like this zone here. Or else 49, below 49 cents. Nothing else. Hey DB, hope you're good. What do you think about the yen basket? I think it gives more directional bias than DXY. The yen? You mean the Japanese yen? Elaborate. I never look at it, to be honest. What do you got on it? Yeah, 3 days, man. I don't know. Look at the. I mean, LTC is pumping. You know what I mean? LTC, 3 day, 1 day. A lot of people buy those expecting a breakout, but usually they end up with fake outs. If we get something on like this on LTC, I think it's short 124, 126. So don't rush into being too bullish on something like this yet, in my view. Yes, BTC dominance I covered a bit earlier, but I can do it again for you, Rahim. That level for total 3 we discussed the other day, Rahim, was Pico. I don't know if you followed that. Here, what I said for BTC dominance, if we get this drop here and we print a 3-day bull dip, I would be a bit cautious getting trapped in altcoins. If we get this, can still take some time to be formed, but be careful if it happens. Set some alerts below this candle close here, below 60.85. I don't think, I mean, I would be surprised if Bitcoin dominance makes new cycle highs, but this is still something worth considering. Yeah, you're welcome, Flying. Happy to help. I'll check the Japanese yen hamster. To be honest, I've never really looked at it that much, but I'll look at it and see if I see something interesting, and maybe incorporate it in my analysis. But unfortunately, I have to wrap it up now. I think there's a stream right after me, so I don't want to take anyone's time. I appreciate you for joining. I hope this is helpful. As per usual, let me know on the fundamentals if you have any questions, and stay safe trading and take care, everyone. Have a nice day.